Hi, everyone. We're going to get started in just about one more minute. We're waiting for a few more people to hop on. If you want to access the slides and follow along, you can go down to the bottom of your Google Meet, and if you hover over it, there's a link with the attachments. Also, I put the bit.ly in the chat box if you just want to open another tab and type in the bit.ly there. And then also we'll be recording this and then posting it on the PD site for you to revisit and go back to.
All right, so it looks like everyone's good, so we'll go ahead and get started. First of all, thank you guys all so much for all the work that you're doing at home to support distance learning. We know this is a completely new way of teaching and learning, not just for students and parents, but for staff as well. So we really do appreciate all of the hard work that you guys are doing in planning, grading, keeping up with your students, but also taking the time to attend a professional development in this remote setting and taking these opportunities back to your students. So we really do want to just highlight that and really honor the work that you guys are doing. So today's session, my name is Steve Kong. I'm the coordinator of digital learning initiatives, and my co-facilitator is Crystal Hart. She is waving. Some of you might be able to see that on the sidebar. If you don't see that, on the bottom of your Google Meet, if you scroll your mouse down, you should get a little pop-up that shows 3 little dots on the lower right. If you click that, you'll get a pop-up that says change layout. And then once you click change layout, you'll want to either hit sidebar, spotlight, or tiled. I would recommend sidebar or spotlight so that you're able to keep up with the slide presentation as we're going through this content today.
Thanks, Kong. And again, if some of you are still having trouble finding the slides, if you go down on your Google Meet, there'll be that paper clip and you can click up and you'll notice that the attachments are also embedded there. All right. Just to let you know, this professional development will be recorded and we'll be posting it so you can refer back to it as well as share it with your colleagues if you find that this is something that will be valuable to enrich your instruction in this virtual environment. Our agenda today, we're going to go over some virtual PD best practices as this is new to facilitators, to people who are attending. We're going to look at Jamboard and what it is and how to create jams, some of the features that you can use in your Jamboard, and then some simple ways you can engage students in your Jamboard. And then we're going to try to participate in one and see how that goes. And then at the end, if you can just leave feedback to help us kind of shape and guide our future professional development, we'd appreciate that. All right, so Dr. Kong. We're going to look at some virtual PD best practices. So it's okay. So virtual PD is new to everyone. This is the Department of Innovation and Learner Engagement's first PD in this virtual environment. So we just ask that you give yourself grace as well as facilitators grace. As you can see, even just in this first couple minutes, we're figuring things out. But definitely things will happen. It won't be perfect, but hopefully you learn with something new that you can use for your students. Also know that you can choose the learning method that works best for you. Some of you, this will be best if you just sit back, you listen, you observe, and you don't try to manipulate too many tabs and get lost, but just kind of take it all in, kind of like a first close reading. Others might prefer to take notes. So you had a note-taking sheet that you could print, or maybe just line paper, or if you like digital notes, it's a Google Doc, so you could write on the doc. And then some of us that are more techie and just want to go full force right in, you can actively participate with a second window and try to kind of keep up if you want. But just remember that you can rewatch this recording later and you can explore at your own pace. And then please, we encourage you to use the chat to ask questions. Dr. Kong will be facilitating the chat, so he will make sure that we address your question in a timely manner. So we're going to jump right in. All right, so what is Jamboard? Jamboard is an interactive whiteboard. It's part of our G Suite for Education tools that we have actually kind of hidden in our apps and our Drive actually. It allows students and teachers to write with a marker or a pen. You can use a highlighter or a brush. And it's really neat because you can add backgrounds so that you can have lined paper, or you can even do graph paper, which is great for our math teachers. And then you can add Post-its for notes. So it's really engaging for the students because that seems extra fun for them. And then you can also insert images to annotate. So you can bring in science diagrams and maps, and you can even bring in text and have the students close read and write all over that. So the way to create a jam is you're going to click on your waffle, so that app's waffle, and then you're going to click Jamboard and the plus icon. So what that'll look like is right here. We've got our waffle right here, and then you'll scroll down. Jamboard is somewhere in here. It's this yellow one right here, and you can click on that. It's going to open up a new Jamboard. And you can also, just like docs or slides, you can type in jamboard.google.com and you'll be taken to the Jamboard home. And then when you're ready to create a new one, you'll want to click this plus right here, and it will create a plain white blank template for you to start with. So that's one way that you can get to your Jamboard. And then the next way, you can also just go through your drive. So you can click on your waffle, go down to your drive, and then many of us like to start this way where you click new, and then if you go more, Jamboard's down there underneath. So those are two ways to get to the same place to open up a new blank Jamboard. So some of the features that are included in your Jamboard is you're able to write, and you can use a highlighter, a marker, a pen, or a brush, and then you can change the colors. So for kids that are working on iPads or touchscreen devices, the writing is a little bit neater, but that is one of the options that you can do with your mouse as well. And then to erase, you have a few options. If you want to just erase some small areas on your Jamboard, you can use this eraser right here. You can clear everything, clear the frame. So maybe if you're doing instruction and you've worked out a math problem, and then when you're done, you can clear the whole frame. And then we also have the undo and the redo button. Next, you have sticky notes. So for Jamboards, other than writing freehand with that marker or highlighter, you can't insert a text box and write, but you can use sticky notes. So sticky notes are kind of their fun way of communicating. You can type in there and then click save. And then the nice thing is that you can duplicate your sticky notes. So if you're making a template for students because you want to share, you don't have to rewrite the same thing on every single slide. You can click and duplicate. And then Kong, are there any questions so far in the chat?
Is there a way to change the size of the eraser?
There is not. So you can click on the eraser. Well, here, let's go ahead and write something. You can change the size of the writing tool based on what you're picking, but the eraser is just one thing that is one size. However, if you made a whole bunch of writing and you want that whole thing erased, you can always click undo, kind of a workaround for that. Any other questions?
Crystal, when I was playing around with it in another tab, after I did the sticky note, it's super small. Is there a way? Oh, there's the zoom. Never mind. I didn't see the zoom button.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem. And hi, Marie.
Hi.
Yeah, so after you do it, it gets kind of, the size changes based on how much you write. But then once you click on it, just like a lot of our Google tools, you'll see that those blue lines came around it. And so you can make it as large as you want. You can rotate it. And then when I was talking about duplicating, these three dots right here, you'll click that. For Google, that means there's more options. And so I can edit it, or I can duplicate, or I can delete. So the sticky notes are one of my favorite features. All right. And then also you can add images. So you can upload from your drive. This is very familiar. Google's very consistent in the way they give us options, which is nice. So you can pull in photos. You can't upload a PDF, but what I've seen teachers do is they'll take a screenshot of the text that they want their students to annotate, and then they'll upload it through their drive or from their hard drive. And then they can draw on top of the image. So that's really nice because they can make all sorts of connections and really interact with that piece of text. And then this is the laser pointer feature, kind of when you're doing small group instruction or whole group instruction with your class and you want them to track your thinking, you can click on that laser pointer. And I like that it disappears after you let go of the cursor. And for Jamboard, it is that interactive whiteboard. It's similar to slides, except for we can all manipulate the tools, I think, a lot easier than slides. And students, they use slides often, so this is kind of a nice, fun, new way to engage them. You can add up to 20 pages for each Jamboard. So you can see that there's these 3 dots. You can click on those and you can duplicate. So if you have one template you're using for multiple students, you can duplicate that. And then you also see there's this plus right here. You can add a board in between. Kong, any other questions that have come up?
Yeah, so Susan asked if she could add images and can students manipulate images to create something new? So like music notes and notation images. And I said that students can draw on top of the image, which I think you shared.
And Susan, there you go. Yes, so you can drag and drop. So if you had maybe a treble clef or a bass clef and you wanted your students to place the notes on the C's and D's and E's or whatnot, you could put that and then they can manipulate any of this. So students will be able to interact, which means they can delete anything. So we're going to talk about norms later because this is just like our classroom. We'll need to have classroom management. But part of giving them that freedom is just kind of teaching them your expectation. But yeah, I've seen lots of, for the primary, drag and drops where there's the letters and they're matching letters with pictures. So you can put all sorts of scaffolds in for your students if you don't just want them doing the creating. That's a great question. Thank you for asking. Anything else before we move on, Kong?
There's a question to, do we have a program that converts PDF to JPEG or PNG without having to use screenshots just as an alternative? So Charlene, we don't have a specific program for that. Usually what I'll do is I'll just search for a PDF to JPEG converter online. I can put one in the chat for you. These are just public sites where I will put in a PDF and then it will convert the file for me, and then I just download the image that way.
And then I think I saw a question, there we go, about adding the plus. So when you're on your Jam, you can click to go between slides by using these arrows back and forth. But if you click this little caret down, it says expand, and then you can see that you can add this frame if I wanted to put something in between 1 and 2 right here, or I can keep adding frames onto the end. Also, that's where you hover and see the 3 dots and you can duplicate. So if I had something that I wanted all my students to use, I could duplicate and then edit from there, which is really nice. All right. Okay, moving on. Something that's really important, we are looking at sharing and collaborating in this virtual environment. So G Suite for Education is a great tool that we've been using. Understanding the share settings is very important. So when you want to share your Jamboard with your students, you want to think about what your purpose is. Do you want them just to view it, to refer back to it, maybe look at your models for note taking, or do you want them to actually interact and collaborate on the board? So you want to make sure when you click share, it opens up this menu for you. You want to, by default, it's anyone in Riverside can find or use the link to view. That means they're just looking and they're not interacting. If you want to change that, click change. And then you'll notice that you have these choices over here. So anyone in the district can find if they search, but usually we want this one. Your students, anyone with the link can find. And then since today we're going to do something collaborative, I've changed it to can edit. So you want to make sure for your students, if they're saying I can't interact with it, it's probably something within the share settings. So then you want to click save. All right, so engaging the students with a Jam in Google Meet. There's so many different ways you can use an interactive whiteboard. I know when I was in the classroom, we used the little whiteboards for checking for understanding all the time. So whiteboards are a powerful tool. You can use Jamboard for just demonstration, instruction. If you're doing a lesson and you don't want necessarily the students interacting on your board, but just for something where you can show them. I know we're teaching in our homes and I didn't have a whiteboard or a way that I could do instruction in my classroom. This would be really powerful. It's kind of like endless chart paper. Small group instruction's really good, especially for our little learners when you're teaching them to collaborate digitally, and having all 25 on one Jamboard might be a lot in the beginning. But if you're doing some sort of small group instruction, this is a really nice place. And then you could assign a frame for each student so that they know, go to the one with my name, that's where I'll do my work. It's a really nice way just to do like a digital KWL, just engage students. It doesn't have to be elaborate. You can just say, we're learning about whatever your new topic is. What do you already know? And the kids can just slap Post-its on there. Real simple, but you'll get a lot of meaningful information. And then again, text and annotation. If you put in an image, the kids can mark up that image and do all sorts of interacting. And then Jamboards are really good for warm-ups and checking for understanding. So just real quick, take it out the door type of things after you've done a Google Meet with your students. All right, so sharing the Jamboard in with the link in a Meet. So that's kind of what we just talked about with the share settings. After you change them to edit, if you want your students to collaborate, you want to copy that link and then open it up in the Meet chat and paste that link in there. And the first time you'll need to tell your students explicitly, this is what I need you to do. I wouldn't give them access to that until you have given them all of your expectations. Just like new manipulatives, if you dump them out on the table, they don't hear you when you're telling the rules. You have to tell them all of the rules and expectations before you give them the tool. So same with digital. So the next thing is that you can also take your Jamboard, because it's just like a Google Doc or slide or any of those things. You can create a template and you can make a copy for each student in the classroom, and then they have their own Jamboard to do their own work on in Google Classroom. So you would want to open up your classroom. We'll go to the classwork tab, just like we would when we create any sort of assignment for our students. Right here. And then you'll want to click create and then an assignment, because that's when we get that option to make a copy for each student. Add your instructions. I know right now, while we're transitioning to virtual learning, the instructions piece is really important because a lot of students have parents helping them. And so the more detail we can give our students in that area, I think the better quality of product they'll create for us. So spend time on those instructions, and then you'll click add and you'll click your Google Drive and pull out whatever Jamboard you've already made for your students. That's gonna go ahead and load. And here's our untitled one that we were just playing with. I'll use that as a sample. And then the most important thing, remember Google by default, is students can view. You want to click the caret down, and we want to make a copy for each student. You can do all of this information over here, put it under a topic. You can even assign a rubric. I know as we come towards the end of the school year, it's a good time to allow the kids to really be creative and create projects based on their learning. So you can embed a rubric, and then caret down, you can assign immediately, schedule, save as a draft, or throw away. So once you've assigned that, then your students can interact with a Jamboard in a different type of way. And we are going to go ahead and we're going to try to do an interactive Jamboard. This will be our first thing virtually through PD, so hopefully it goes really well. Some of our norms that you would want to share with students, and based on your grade level that you're teaching and your students, you know them so well, you'll want to really spend time establishing these, make sure the language is appropriate for the grade level. But basically, you want your students to follow directions if they're going to collaborate on a Jamboard, because all of your students will be on this one document at the same time. And if you've ever done like a digital jigsaw, you know that it can get kind of crazy. So follow teacher's directions. I've put a post-it, and I would recommend for the first time, if you're going to allow students to collaborate, before you have 4 or 5 kids on one board, you might want to put a post-it and assign each kid, so as they're learning the tools of Jamboard, they're not accidentally deleting others' work. And then just be cognizant, think about what you add to your board. Is it school appropriate? Is it kind? All of those things you want to call attention to and remind your students that that's certain behaviors are required still. And then just be mindful of your classmates' work, because if you are on the same board or you're reviewing each other's and looking, you know, don't click on it and accidentally delete, because they can, but we just have to teach them that expectation. So right here on slide 28, you'll see that we have a link to our Jam. This is the link that I would put in the chat for the students if I was doing it through a Google Meet. Most of you, I think if I did it right, should have your name on a board. So when you click on it, we're gonna all be on the same Jamboard. And I tried to assign you something to kind of just play and explore based on your grade level. So if you could find the board with your name, play around, thank you, Colin, play around, add some answers, play with all those different tools. And then when you're done, look at your peers and kind of just see what they've done. I think that's a really fun part for the students. They're missing their friends and their classmates. So being able to see each other's work and positively comment to each other is going to be really special for them. So if you are stuck, I see lots of you are on our document. As a teacher, I can click this little caret down and I can start previewing in real time what everybody's doing on their Jamboards. Lots of people are thinking, getting ready to start, finding theirs. So we have a really good question on one of the boards. Someone asked if there's another way to do text on the board. And unfortunately, there is not. One thing that I've seen teachers do is they'll do a post-it and they'll make it transparent, and then you can overlay it on images or in places. Let's see, we have another good question. Can I connect to Jamboard from my iPad and edit in real time during Google Meets? Yeah, so on your iPad or any device, even your phone, you can open up Jamboard at jamboard.google.com or through your Drive or through that waffle. And then you can also edit in real time during a Google Meet. The thing with a Google Meet is this, I'm presenting my screen right now, so my students see what I'm doing. Do you would just want to think about how are they getting access to this Jamboard? Are you putting it in Google Classroom for them to view, and then they can view it in real time? So there's lots of different opportunities for you. Any other questions? No? All right. Well, thank you for participating. Your boards look amazing.
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
Is there like a snap to grid feature or a way to draw like straighter lines? When I draw with my mouse, I feel like I'm in, you know, just learning how to draw or something with a giant Crayola. And I noticed the stylus was a little bit better. I happen to have one I borrowed from my daughter. But is there a way in Jamboard to draw certain shapes like squares, rectangles, or even snap to grid points or anything?
So on the real Jamboard, I don't know if you noticed it says open on a Jamboard. Jamboard is actually a product, kind of like a real smartboard that Google sells. If you had that product with that software, yeah, they do the auto draw. So you can scribble a tree and then put a circle around it and it's perfect. And you can do chicken scratch writing and it'll recognize it. I don't know if you do on an iPad, download the app if you have more features like a real Jamboard. That's something we'd have to look into. Yeah, so it is definitely a huge learning curve using these and our mouse and all of that. So no, I don't think there's a good solution yet. And then is it compatible with an Apple
Thank you.
Pencil? You're welcome. And I don't know about the Apple Pencil. Do you, Colin?
No, I don't know if it registers it. It might work if you're using the Apple Pencil with maybe the Jamboard app, but I'm not familiar with the app just because I don't have an iPad.
Yeah. And then there's another question about, it's kind of like version history. I see that Jennifer asked about, can you see who typed the notes if they're all on the same board? So this doesn't track version history the same way Slides does. So possibly if you wanted to kind of keep each student accountable for every mark they put on that project, you would want to use Google Slides and Jigsaw that way. So you can't see it other than when they're actually on the document. You can see they have their little cursor. Let me see if anybody's still on. You'll see their little cursor where they're writing if there's multiple people, but it has to be in that real time for you to kind of catch who did what. So again, that's why norms are really important. I know we set the bar really high for the kids. They'll usually rise to the occasion.
And Reno, just going back to your question about some maybe shapes and solid lines, since it's not built natively within Jamboard the way we're playing around with it, one option would be if you click on the little image icon on the left, it lets you pull in images from your drive. So you could have students create pictures or drawings using Google Drawing, since that app does allow kids to use kind of shapes and straight lines, and then they can just upload those images from Google Drawing onto their Jamboard if you needed to do something like that. I mean, it's a little bit more work, but it is a workaround where you might get some cleaner images if you needed it.
Okay, yeah, thanks. That might work, and because then they could draw on that image, right? It's just like upload an image, and then they can just, it's in the background, and then they can draw on it. Yeah.
That's a really good idea. All right. Any other questions, concerns, or comments about Jamboard from anybody? All right. Well, if you could just fill out your feedback form, we do appreciate you spending time in your day, kind of learning something new, adding another tool to your tool belt, especially with instruction looking so different. Your feedback's really important to us. That way, as we develop more professional development, you'll really help us guide and shape it as far as like, was it too much, too fast, too slow? But we appreciate you filling out that form. If there's any sort of feedback, or not feedback, but professional development that you would really like to see, we are open to suggestions. Our goal is to support you during this time. So please let us know what you're needing out there in the classroom, and we'll see what we can do. But Kong and I will hang on for a couple more minutes, but this is officially the end of our PD. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, guys. We also put the feedback form in the chat as well, if you want to just click on that.